Alright, hopefully I'm streaming. If not, then, well, that's too bad. I messed that up. Alright, so, today I have decided I will read every single one of the rules and regulations of Magic the Gathering. Alright, there's not a whole lot to it. You want to ask questions, go right ahead. I'm checking the stream right now to see if this is actually working. Okay, yep, that's good. Alright, well then, let's hope that this works. Alright. Actually, I should probably wait for at least like one person to join. Screw it. It's going to be a VOD, so who knows. There we go. All right, game concepts, general. These Magic rules apply to any Magic game with two or more players, including two-player games and multiplayer games. A two-player game is a game that begins with only two players. A multiplayer game is a game that begins with more players than two players. See Section 8, multiplayer rules. Oh, thank you. Yeah, this is a good idea. And because my stream latency is so horrible with the internet I have at home, this is all I really thought that I could do, so this is what we're doing. And I hope everybody enjoys it. Alright, to play, each player needs their own deck of traditional Magic cards, small items to represent any tokens and counters, and some way to clearly track life totals. I just want to say, this is background sound right now. In constructed play, alright, I've officially decided I'm not going to read anything in parentheses because it's probably not important. And also, like I said, feel free to ask questions so we can mix this up a little bit. Each deck has a minimum deck size of 60 cards. A constructed deck may contain any number of basic lands and no more than 4 of any card in particular. Well, unless we're playing Commander, am I right, guys? English name other than basic land, who cares? Alright, in limited play, parentheses doesn't matter, each deck has a minimum deck size of 40 cards. There's a limited play? Guys, okay, this is interesting now. This is getting into the deep lore. A limited deck may contain as many duplicates of a card as are included with the product. Commander decks are subject to an additional deck building restrictions and requirements. See Rule 903 Commander for details. Well, we'll get there eventually. Some cards require coins or traditional dice. Some casual variants require additional items, such as specially designated cards, non-traditional Magic cards, and specialized dice. I want to look over at chat, and then I do that, and then I look over, and I don't know where my spot is anymore. So that's going to be a problem. Deck between games, Magic, specialized dice. Okay, I'll start marking it with my mouse. Alright, each player may also have a sideboard, which is a group of additional cards that the player may use to modify their deck between games of a match. In constructed play, a sideboard may contain no more than 15 cards. The 4-card limit applies to the combined deck and the sideboard. That's fascinating. In limited play involving individual players, all cards in a player's card pool not included in their deck are that player's sideboard. In limited play involving two-headed giant multiplayer variant, all cards in a team's card pool but not either player's deck are in that team's sideboard. In limited play involving other multiplayer variants, each card in the team's card pool but not any blah blah blah, who cares. Alright, anyways, if a deck must contain at least a certain number of cards that is numbered in referred to as a minimum deck size, blah blah blah, and nobody cares. Alright. Guys, this is going to take a while to read all this, I'm not going to lie. Most Magic tournaments, in parentheses doesn't matter, have additional rules covered in Magic the Gathering tournament rules. These rules may limit the use of some cards, including barring and all other... This needs to be closer to my face. These words are too small. Alright, that's better. Alright, tournaments usually consist of series of matches. A two-player match usually involves playing until one player has won 2 games. A multiplayer match may consist of only 1 game. How many pages this thing got? Okay, so we're on page 6 right now. And there are about 261 pages. So we got a little ways to go, but I think we're making some good progress. I will have to find my spot now. I believe it was page 6. Blah blah consists of only 1 game, cover these rules. The Magic Golden rules, we'll just go there. Whenever a card's text directly contradicts the rules, these cards take precedence. The card overrides the only rule that applies to the specific situation. The only exception is that a player can concede the game at any time. When a rule or effect allows direct... I'm going to look at that. Alright, let's see here. That's the stream. Okay. I'm good at streaming, guys. I swear. All right. Where was I? Ah, there we go. We'll just say it was there. Any part of an instruction. You know what? There's got to be a table of contents. Okay. We can skip past the general parts, right? Wait, we got that. All right, players. Where's the stuff that's like towards the end of the iceberg? Conspiracy draft, plague chase, vanguard, commander. Guys? Which one of these sounds interesting? None of them. All right. When a rule or effect allows or directs something to happen, and another effect states that it can't happen, the can't takes precedence. Example. If one effect reads, you may play an additional land this turn, and another reads, you can't play lands this turn, the effect that precludes you from playing lands wins. No cheating? Oh, it's fair. Alright, we'll just keep going. Adding abilities to objects and removing abilities from objects don't fall under this rule. Any part of an instruction that's impossible to affirm is ignored. If multiple players would make choices and or take actions at the same time, the active player makes any choices required. Then the next player, in turn order, makes any choices required, following by the remaining non-active players in turn order. Then the actions happen simultaneously. This rule is often referred to as the active player, non-active player order rule. I did not get any of that. I really hope you guys did. There will be a quiz at the end. If an effect has each player choose a card in the hidden zone, such as their hand, library, or cards that may remain face down as they're chosen, however, each player must clearly indicate which face down card they are choosing. A player knows the choices made by previous players when making their choice, except specified in 104A. Huh. If a player would make more than one choice at the same time, the player makes the choice in the order specified. If no order is specified, the player chooses the order. Alright. You guys better have the pencil and paper out. If a choice made by a non-active player caused the active player or a different non-active player earlier in the turn order to have made a choice, I don't know what that stands for. Order is restarted for all outstanding choices. Somebody has read all of this and memorized this. I want you all to let that sink in. Alright. If multiple players would make choices or take actions while starting the game, the starting player is considered the active player, and each other player is considered a non-active player. Players. Alright. I think we're making some pretty good progress right now, I'm not going to lie. In a two-player game, a player's opponent is the other's player. In a multiplayer game, between a player's teammates are the only players on their team, and the player's opponents are all the players not on their team. A spell or ability may use the term your team as shorthand for you and or your teammates. In a game that isn't multiplayer game between teams, your team means the same thing as you, starting the game. At the start of the game, the players may determine which one of them will choose who takes the first turn. In the first game of a match, blah blah, parentheses, doesn't matter, the players may use any mutually agreed method, blah blah blah. To do so, in a match of several games, the loser of the previous game chooses who takes the first turn. In previous game was draw. Fascinating. The player who guys, this is going to be a struggle. The player who made the choice in the game choices the game. The player chosen to take the first start player. The game's default starting player proceeds clockwise. All right. I think this is going pretty well. All right. In a game using the standard team option, I got to make this more exciting, guys. I think I know how to make this more exciting. Just give me a second. I got to get into character. In a game using share team turns option, there's a starting team rather than starting player. In Archame Ganymede, these methods aren't used to determine who takes the first turn. Rather, the archenemy takes the first turn. A one-card power play states that the controller, the starting player, effect applies for this determination, has happened and supersedes these methods. After the starting player has been determined, each player shuffles their deck so that the cards are in random order. Each player may then shuffle each opponent's cut deck. The player's decks come with them their libraries. Wait, so a deck and a library are two different things? That's fascinating. Alright. Define player, please. Me. Alright. If a player is using a sideboard or cards being represented by a substitute card, those cards are set aside before shuffling. If a player wishes to reveal a card with a companion ability that they... Oh, this is like a recent thing too. Why is this so early? Anyways. They own from outside the game, they must do so after setting aside their sideboard. A player may reveal no more than one card this way, and they may do so if the deck fulfills the condition that the card's companion ability applies. Blah, blah, blah. In a commander game, each player puts their commander from the deck face up into the command zone after having the opportunity to reveal a card with companion ability before shuffling. In a conspiracy draft game, each player puts any number of conspiracy cards from their sideboard into the command zone before shuffling. See Rule 905.4. No, I will not. Each player begins the game with a starting life total of 20. Some variants have different starting life totals. Oh, thank you, Tyler Brown, for the $5. Is this rules and regulations of... I don't know who that is. I'll Google it. Rules and regulations of Majority Tyler Green. Listen, man. That sounds like big brain stuff. Nah. This is exciting. God, I'm so smart sometimes, except for when I'm really done. Do it. Alright, what is this? I'm Googling it right now on my phone. This seems like a political thing. I'm not going to touch it, actually. That's very interesting. Thank you. Alright. Each player begins the game with a starting life total of 20. Okay, we already did that. In a Vanguard's game, each player's starting total with 20 minus their Vanguard card. What is a Vanguard game? Has anyone ever played Vanguard? No? I'll just say it's no. Nobody knows. I've never even heard the word Vanguard mentioned before. Alright. In a two-player brawl game, each player's starting life is 25. In a multiplayer brawl game, each player's starting life is 30. In an arch-enemy game, the arch-enemy's starting total life is 40. Each player draws a number of cards equal to their starting hand size, which is normally 7. Some effects... maybe the parentheses should be read in a whisper. Some effects can modify a player's starting hand size. A player who is dissatisfied with their initial hand may take a mulligan. First, the starting player declares whether they will take a mulligan. Then the other player, in turn order, does the same. Once each player has made a declaration, all players who decided to take mulligans do so at the same time. To take a mulligan, a player shuffles the cards in their hand back to the library, draws a new hand of cards equal to their starting hand size, then puts a number of cards equal to the number of cards that player has taken a mulligan to the bottom of their deck in any order. Once a player has chosen not to take a mulligan, the remaining cards of the... become that player's opening hand, and the players may not take any further mulligans. This process is repeated until no player takes a mulligan. A player can take a mulligan until their opening hand would be 0 cards, after which they take no further mulligans. Alright. This guy's reading all the rules. What a character. Hey, that's me. Alright. In a Vanguard game, each player... Nobody cares about Vanguard. Jesus. In a Vanguard game, each player's starting hand size is 7 plus or minus the hand modifier of their Vanguard cards. Does anyone know what Vanguard is? Alright, I don't think it's relevant. If an effect allows a player to perform an action any time, the player could mulligan. Do we read things in brackets? I'm going to say no. The player may perform that action at a time they would declare whether they will take the mulligan. This need not be the first round of mulligans. Other players may have already made their mulligan declarations by the time the player has the option to perform this action. If the player performs this action, they will declare whether they will take a mulligan. Alright. There's got to be some strat to this. Whatever. In a multiplayer game and in a brawl game, first mulligan a player takes doesn't count towards the number of cards that player will put on the bottom of their library. I think that rule should be in Commander, personally. The one free mulligan rule, I like it. Or the number of mulligans that player takes. Subsequent mulligans are counted towards the number as normal. Oh, thank you, Riley Rye Bread. I'm really good at reading, as you can tell, for the $1 donation. You're performing a legendary feat? That I am indeed. Alright. And I have work tomorrow, so we're going to get as far as down in this thing as we can. But you skip two-headed giant rule? Who plays two-headed giant? So I can't promise we will get through all of it. And I may stop when I feel the need to eat. We don't know when that is. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking right now. But I will keep trucking on as long as I can. In a multiplayer game using the share team options, the first player on the starting team declares whether the player that will take a mulligan. Then the players on the other team in the turn order do the same. Teammates may consult while making their decisions. Then all mulligans are taken at the same time. A player may take a mulligan even after a teammate has decided their opening hand. Some cards allow a player to take actions with them for their opening hand. Once the mulligan process is complete, the starting player may take an action such as actions in any order. Then each player in turn order may do the same. I want you guys to know I'm not getting any of this. I have absorbed literally no information at all. If a card allows a player to begin the game with that card in the battlefield, the player taking this action puts the card on the battlefield. That makes sense. If a card allows the player to reveal it from its opening hand, the player taking this action does so. The card remains revealed until the turn begins. Each card may be revealed this way only once. In a multiplayer game, using the shared team options option first, each player on the starting team, in whatever order the team likes, may take such actions. Teammates may consult while making their decision. Then each player on other team may do so the same. In a plane chase game. Okay, once again, does anybody know what plane chase is? Because all I know is there's standard, right? There's two-headed giant, if you want to call that a different thing. And then after that, there's commander. And I think, like, no, there's modern. People play modern. And that's it. That's all the ones. Those are all the important ones. And I refuse to acknowledge any other ones. Maybe I need to act more drunk while doing this. Or, not drunk, but more so how I do my my deck techs. A lot of people have accused me of being drunk in all of my videos, which is a fair assessment, I will say. That's completely fair. But I'm sadly not drunk in the... it's a good thing I'm not drunk in all of my videos. Otherwise, I'd have to drink a lot. All right. The starting player takes their first turn. In a two-player game, the player skips the first turn on their first turn. In a two-headed giant game, two-headed giant, you guys love this. The team who plays the first skip of the draw step of their first turn. In all multiplayer games, no player skips the draw step of their first game. Ending the game. A game ends immediately when a player wins. When a game is a draw or when the game is restarted. That makes sense, all right. There are several ways to win a game. A player still in a game wins the game if that player's opponents have all the left games. The game is immediately. You know, they can't even say that the game ends when a person runs out of life. They can't say that because there are cards that specifically say, like, hey, if you run out of life, you don't lose the game. So they can't even say that. All right. A player... it's a good thing I'm not drunk in all my videos, so you just have to guess. Yes, you have to guess. I'm not drunk in any of them, I swear, guys. 251 pages to go. Alright, a player still in the game wins the game if that player's opponents have all left the game. Which means, I want to specify to this. You win if the player leaves the game. You don't have to reduce their life total to 0. You don't have to do anything. You just have to get them to leave. So if you force somebody to get up and walk away from a game of Commander with physical force, by the rules of Magic the Gathering, you have won that game. I'm just throwing that out there. All right. In a multiplayer game between teams, a team with at least one player still in the game wins. The game if all other teams have left the game. Once again, the leave the game rule still applies. So if you got like Mike Tyson on your team, just get him to beat the crap out of the other guys. I'm so good at Magic. Anyways, each player on the winning team wins the game, even if there are one or more players who have previously lost that game. Emperor game. What the hell is Emperor? Oh, guys, I have some water in my room. This is going to be great because I can already feel my throat being destroyed. I don't think I'm going to learn what Emperor is by reading these rules, too. So that really sort of defeats the purpose of this. Okay, in an Emperor game, a team wins the game if the Emperor wins the game. Who the hell is the Emperor? There are several ways to lose a game. I know all of them because I've probably done them all. A player can concede the game at any time. A player who concedes leaves the game immediately. That player loses the game. If a player's life total is 0 or less, that player loses the game the next time the player would receive priority. Okay, here's an interesting question. You can concede the game at any time, so you can do it faster than instant speed. You can do it at split-second speed. You always have that card. You always have that card that you can play. I want you to agree that. Emperor is 3v3. Who cares? Lame. It's not Commander. If a player is required to draw more cards that are left in the library, they draw the remaining cards and lose the game. The next time a player would receive priority. Alright. If a player has 10 or more poison counters, that player loses the game the next time the player would receive priority. An effect may state that a player loses the game. Alright, that's good to know. If a player would both win and lose the game simultaneously, that player loses the game. Huh. In a multiplayer, I'll actually remember this one. Alright, in a multiplayer game between teams, a team loses the game if all players in that team have lost the game. Alright. You know, I said there was going to be a quiz at the end, but I'm not absorbing any of this, so there might still be a quiz. You don't know. Alright, in a multiplayer game using limited range of influence options, an effect that states a player wins the game instead causes all that player's opponents within the player's range of influence to lose the game. This may not cause the game to end. I don't know why it wouldn't, but okay. In an Emperor game, a team loses the game if its Emperor loses the game. In a Commander game, a player who's been dealt 21 or more combat damage by the same commander over the course of the game loses that game. In a tournament, a player may lose the game as a result of a penalty given by a judge. So here's another cool trick. You can actually pay off a judge. Anybody ever thought of that? Have you guys ever thought of that? Okay, let's look at the rules here. If you pay off a judge and you get him to declare that you are a win, is that cheating? Because he declared that you won, and he did it of his own free will because you paid him. And I don't see how that's legitimately legal, okay? I don't want to hear a single person here arguing about that. You can pay off judges to win, all right? Keep that in mind. All right, there are several ways for a game to be a draw. If all players remaining in a game lose simultaneously, then the game is a draw. If a game that's not using the limited range of influence option, parentheses, somehow enters a loop of mandatory actions repeating a sequence of events with no way to stop, the game is a draw. Loops that contain an optional action don't result in a draw. An effect may state that the game is a draw. In a multiplayer game between teams, the game is a draw if all remaining teams lose simultaneously. In a multiplayer game using the limited range of influence options, the effect of a spell or ability that states that a game is a draw causes the game to be a draw for that spell's ability's controller and all players within the range of influence. Only those players leave the game. The game continues for all other players. In a multiplayer game using the limited range of influence option, if the game somehow enters a loop of mandatory actions repeating a sequence of events with no way to stop, the game is a draw for each player who controls an object that's involved in the loop, as well as for each player within the range of influence of any of those players. Only those players leave the game. The game continues for all other players. Did anybody get that? Because I really hope you did. Alright. Is this going well? I think this is going well. Because I do. Alright. Let's see here. Okay. Let's see. There's a lot of things I would do differently on the stream. Let's see. Repeat that last part. The one on the 6th page or the one that I just said? Alright. In a multiplayer game using limited range of influence options, the effect of a spell or ability that states the game in a draw. Wait, did I already read this? I lost my spot. I think I read that. The game's... I think we're right here. Is it bad that I can't understand any of this? Dude, I can't understand any of this. I don't even know what an emperor is. In a multiplayer game between teams, the game is a draw for a team if the game is a draw for all remaining players in that team. In the emperor variant, the game is a draw for a team if the game is a draw for its emperor. In a tournament, all players in this game may agree to an intentional draw. Huh. That sounds fascinating. Let's see. Let's see. Where was I? Sorry, I was doing some other stuff. I'm in the real world too, guys. Alright. In the Emperor variant, the game is a draw for the team, blah, 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 all tournaments, blah, blah, blah. Alright. If a player loses the game, that player leaves the game. If the game is a draw for players, that player leaves the game, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I think we're right here. Alright. I think you misread my last comment, Noah. That's okay. Oh, is it bad that I understand all of this? Oh. I'll ignore that I misread that. I'll forgive you this time. Alright. One card, Karn Liberated, restarts the game. All players still in that game when it restarts then immediately begin a new game, restarting the game. Colors. There are 5 colors in Magic the Gathering. White, blue, black, red, and green. Let's see. Emperor's Commander as a 3v3. Oh, is it like Commander? Okay, then maybe it's not so bad after all. An object can be one or more of the 5 colors, or it can be no color at all. That's colorless, I know that. An object is the color or colors of the mana symbols in the mana cost, regardless of the color in its frame. An object's color or colors may also be defined by the color indicator or characteristic defining ability. See Rule 202, I will not. A monocolored object is exactly one of the 5 colors. A multicolor object is exactly 2 of the 5 colors. Oh, 2 or more. Okay, I was confused there for a second. Alright. Effects may change an object's color or given a color of a colorless object. If an effect receives an object of a new color, the new color replaces all previous colors the object had. Effects may also make a colored object become colorless. Alright. I think we're going strong. I think we're almost there. If you want to look at our progress, see how far this bar has gone down? That's our progress. So I think we're doing pretty well. If a player is asked to choose a color, they may choose one of the 5 colors. Multicolor is not a color. Neither is colorless. If an effect refers to a color pair, it means 2 of the 5 colors. There are 10 color pairs. White, blue, white, black. You guys get the drill. Mana is the preliminary resource in the game. Players spend mana to pay costs, usually when casting a spell and activating an ability. There are 5 colors of mana. White, blue, black, red, and green. There are 6 types of mana. White, blue, black, red, green, and colorless. Fascinating. Mana, what about snow? Does that count? That technically counts. Mana is represented by mana symbols. Mana symbols are also represented... Mana costs 0202. No, I won't. Mana is produced by the effects of mana abilities. It may also be produced by the effect of spells, as well as the effect of abilities that aren't mana abilities. A spell or ability that produces mana instructs a player to add mana. If mana is produced by a spell, the source of that mana is a spell. If mana is produced by an ability, the source of that mana is the source of that ability. Makes sense. Alright, when an effect instructs a player to add mana, that mana goes into the player's mana pool. From there, it can be used to pay costs immediately, or it can stay in the player's mana pool as unspent mana. Each player's mana pool empties at the end of steps and phases. The player is said to lose this mana. Cards with abilities that produce mana or refer to unspent mana having received card reference to no longer explicitly refer to this mana pool. If any mana remains in the player's mana pool after this mana was spent to pay a cost, that player announces what mana is still there. If a player passes priority while there is still mana in their mana pool, that player announces what mana is there. If no ability would produce one or more mana of the undefined type, it produces no mana instead. Examples. You know, you guys are smart. I don't think you need to know the examples. Does that sound right? Yeah, that sounds right. Alright, some spells or abilities that produce mana restrict how mana can be spent, have an additional effect that affects spells or abilities mana is spent on to create a triggered ability that triggers when the mana is spent that doesn't affect the mana's type, blah blah blah. Some replacement effects increase the amount of mana produced by a spell or ability. In these cases, any restrictions or additional effects created by the spell or ability will apply to all mana produced. If a spell or ability creates a delayed trigger ability, that ability triggers when the mana is spent. A separate delayed trigger ability is created for each mana produced. If the spell or ability creates a continuous effect or replacement effect, if the mana is spent, a separate effect is created once the mana is produced. Who wrote this? Somebody had the reason that every one of these rules is here is because there would be a problem if it wasn't. When does that come into play? When does that become a problem? Because I have genuinely no idea. I don't even know what I just read. It was probably something not unimportant. And there's not even an example for this one, too. Alright, some abilities produce mana based on the type of mana another permanent could produce. That type of mana a permanent could produce at any time includes any type of mana that an ability of that permanent would produce. If the ability were to resolve at that time, taking into account any applicable replacement effects in any possible order. Ignore whether the costs of the ability could or could not be paid. If that permanent wouldn't produce any mana under those conditions, or no type of mana can be defined this way, there's no type of mana it could produce. Example, Exotic Orchard has the ability add 1 mana of any color a land an opponent's control could produce. If your opponent controls no lands, activating Exotic Orchard's mana ability will produce no mana. The same is true if you and your opponents each control no lands other than Exotic Orchard. However, if you control a forest and an Exotic Orchard, and your opponent controls an Exotic Orchard, then each Exotic Orchard could produce green. Alright, I read that example. Noah, now that you know all these mana rules, you should make a commander deck based on giving your opponents infinite mana, then killing them with mana burn commander. I don't think mana burn is a thing, though, right? Might be, I don't care. Alright, if an effect would add mana represented by a hybrid mana symbol to that player's mana pool, that player chooses 1/2 of that symbol. If a colored half is chosen, that 1 mana of that color is added to that player's mana pool. If a generic half is chosen, then an amount of colorless mana represented by that half's number is added to that player's mana pool. Ha. If an effect would add mana represented by a Phyrexian mana symbol to a player's mana pool, 1 mana of the color that symbol is added to that player's mana pool. An effect would add a generic. Okay, this is all the same thing. Alright. Tap for mana is to activate a mana ability of the permanent that includes the T symbol on its activation cost. That's the little tap thing, the arrow. Alright. An ability that triggers... Alright, pretty soon we'll have to call you Judge Noah. If I understood any of this, yes, you would. Alright, maybe I should do this as an ASMR. An ability that triggers whenever a opponent's mana is triggered. Okay, no. Of a specific ability of that... I'm already getting tired. Anyways. A replacement effect that applies if a permanent is tapped for mana or tapped for mana of a specific type and or amount modifies the mana production event while the ability is resolving and producing mana or a specified type and or amount of mana. After this, guys, we're going to read all the OSHA rules and regulations because I think this is good content, though. I really do. Is it... okay. We're going strong. All right. 1 card, Drain Power, causes play... Let's start looking at these cards. Oh, cool. Plumbers. Causes players only to lose unspent mana and others to add the mana lost this way. Note these make players... This empties for former player's mana pool, causes the mana emptied this way to be put into the latter's mana pool, which permanent spells and or abilities produced that mana are unchanged, as any restrictions or additional effects associated with any of that mana. 107, numbers and symbols. This is gonna be the interesting part. The only numbers the Magic game uses are integers. Well, you should see some of the joke sets. Alright. You cannot choose a fractional number, deal fractional damage, gain fractional life, and so on. If a spell or ability could generate a fractional number, the spell or ability will tell you whether to round up or down. Most of the time, the Magic game uses only positive numbers and zeros. You can't choose a negative number, deal negative damage, gain negative life, and so on. However, it's possible for a game value, such as a creature's power, to be less than 0. If a calculation or comparison needs to use a negative number, it does so. If a calculation that would determine the result of an effect yields a negative number, 0 is used instead, unless that effect doubles or sets to a specific value, a player's life total, or the power of toughness creature card. That makes sense. Alright, if a rule or ability instructs a player to choose any number, that player may choose any positive number or 0. If anything needs to use a number that can't be determined either as a result in a calculation, it uses 0 instead. Many objects use the letter X as a placeholder for a number that needs to be determined. Some objects have that define the value of X. The rest let their controller choose the value of X. Alright. I feel like we've really learned a lot. Oh, I can't use that to adjust. That was a bad idea. Where was I? The mana loss is what... We'll just say I was starting... No, I was already 107. We'll just say I'm right here. All right. If a spell or activated ability has X minus X or X, in its cost or text, the value of the X is determined by the text while it is on the stack. The controller of that spell or ability doesn't get to choose the value. Note that the value of X may change while the spell or ability is on the stack. When does the value of X for literally anything ever possibly change while it's on the stack? I'm out of water. Anyways, if a cost associated with a special action, such as suspend cost or morph cost, has an X or an X in the value of the X is chosen by the player taking the special action immediately before they pay that cost. That makes sense. Alright, if a spell or ability refers to X or X, why am I saying X twice if I'm just going to say it like that? And the mana cost, alternative cost, additional cost, or activation cost of another object, any X in that spell's ability text uses the value of X chosen or defined for the object. I'm willing to bet most of you have this on as background sound, and I'm sure it's very relaxing. I might start streaming more. I've changed up a few things to fix up the stream. I will go check the stream quality at the end of this, and if it's sufficiently improved, I will do other things. But if not, you can assume that I will not be doing more streaming. Alright, if a card in any zone other than the stack has an X in its mana cost, the value of X is treated as 0, even if the value of X is defined somewhere within the text. If an effect instructs a player to pay an object's mana cost, that includes X, the value of X is treated as 0 unless the object is a spell on the stack. In that case, the value of X is the value chosen or determined for the spell's cast. Normally, all instances of X on an object have the same value given at any given time. If an object gains an ability, the value of X within the ability is the value determined by that ability, or 0 if that ability doesn't define the value of X. This is an exception to the rule 107I. There it is. This may occur within the ability adding effects, text changing effects, or copying effects. Stream quality equal vid quality, so A+. Fantastic. Alright. I keep saying this is going well, and you know what? Truth be told, I really don't know if it is. Alright, if an object's activated ability has an I'm not even going to do that one. If an object's enter the battlefield triggered ability or replace effects refers to an X, and the spells that became that object as it's resolved had a value of X chosen for any of its costs, the value of X for its ability is the same as for X for that spell, although the value of X for that permanent is 0. This is an exception to Rule 107.3i. Alright, now for this next couple of lines, I'll be some kid at the front of class in show and tell, and that'll be my impression. Some objects in the letter Y, no, I don't feel it. Additional, the letter Y feels the same as X. Mana symbols are... Let's skip to the next rule. There are 5 primary colored mana symbols. W is white, U is blue, B is black, R is red, and G is green. These symbols are used to represent colored mana and also represent colored mana and cost. Colored mana and cost can be paid only with the appropriate color mana. See Rule 202, mana cost and mana color. I will not. I need to get a webcam. Sadly, my monitor does not have it, so I cannot be nearly as animated, as I'm sure this is all that would be required for this. Numerical numbers such as 1 and variable numbers such as X represent generic mana cost. Generic mana and cost can be paid with any type of mana. For more information about X, see Rule 107.3. The colorless mana symbol C is used to represent one colorless mana. And I did not know that. The symbol for that is C. Fascinating. And also used to represent a cost that can be paid with one colorless mana. The symbol 0 represents 0 mana and is used as a placeholder for the cost that can be paid with no resources. Hybrid mana symbols are also colored mana symbols. Each one represents a cost that can be paid in one of 2 ways, as represented by 2 halves of the symbol. A hybrid symbol, such as WU, can be paid with either white or blue mana. A monocolored hybrid symbol, such as 2B, can be paid with either 1 black mana or 2 mana of any color. A hybrid mana symbol is all components of colors. If Phyrexian mana symbols are colored mana symbols, WP is white, UP is blue. Oh, that's fascinating. BP is black, RP is red, and GP is green. A Phyrexian mana symbol represents a cost that can be paid either with 1 mana colored by 2 life. There are also 10 hybrid Phyrexian mana symbols. A hybrid Phyrexian mana symbol represents a cost that can be paid with 1 mana of either of its components, coloring others, or paying with 2 life. A hybrid Phyrexian mana symbol is both components of colors. You know, for every set they release in Magic the Gathering, these rules are going to get longer. And that's kind of scary. Why are you doing this? Why would I not do this? Do you ever wake up one day and say, hey, maybe I shouldn't read all the rules of Magic the Gathering? I can assure you, you've never woken up and thought that before, so why wouldn't you? See? Now you've been out logic. In rules text, the Phyrexian symbol P with no colored background means any of the 15 Phyrexian mana symbols. 15, that's a lot. When using the cost, snow mana symbol S represents a cost that can be paid with 1 mana of any produced with snow source. Effects that reduce the amount of generic mana you pay don't affect S costs. The S symbol can be used to refer to mana of any type produced by a snow source spent to pay a cost. Snow is neither color nor type of mana. Fascinating. I don't know who wakes up and wants to read any of this. The tap symbol T. The tap symbol in the activation cost means tap this permanent. A permanent that's already tapped cannot be tapped again to pay the costs. A creature activated ability with tap symbol in activation cost can't be activated unless the creature has been taken under it continuously since most recent turn began. I will not see that rule. The untap symbol Q. Oh, that's fascinating. I didn't know that. See, we're learning, guys. The untap symbol is an activation cost, meaning untap this permanent. A permanent that's already untapped cannot be untapped again to pay the costs. A creature's active ability with the untap symbol and its activation cost can't be activated unless the creature has been under its control continuously since most recent turn began. I'm really excited for Rule 302.6 because that's really been hyped up here. I feel like that's a really interesting part of the lore. You're almost 5% done. Hey, that's pretty cool. Alright. Each activated ability of a Planeswalker has a loyalty symbol and its cost. Positive loyalty symbols point upward, a feature a plus sign followed by a number. Negative loyalty symbols point downward and feature a minus sign followed by a number or an X. Why do I keep yawning? Neutral loyalty abilities don't point in either direction and feature a 0. Plus N means put N loyalty counters on this permanent. Minus N means remove N loyalty counters from this permanent. And 0 means put 0 loyalty counters on this permanent. Loyalty symbols may also appear in its abilities that modify loyalty costs. The text of a leveler card contains 2 level symbols, each with a keyword that represents a static ability. The level symbol includes either a range of numbers included here as N1 N2, I don't know what that represents, or a single number followed by a plus sign indicated here as N plus 3. N3 plus. Any abilities printed within the same text box. Strian a text number level. The same is true of power toughness box printed with that saturation indicated PT. See Rule 711. Okay. You guys really want me to read Rule 420. Alright. I promise you guys, at the end of the stream, we will read Rule 420. Is everybody cool with that? I want you to know, this stream, the only purpose I had this stream is, as I mentioned before, it's just a test to see if some of the changes I made it possible for me to stream now without it being laggy as crap. And realistically, I needed to stream this for like 5 minutes, and then I would have been good. I could have just read it for 5 minutes, and nothing bad would have happened. We would have just been all cool. But I decided, hey, what if I didn't? You know what? Let's go read. I will be able to look at the stream after this and say, can I do that? All right, guys, just for you, we'll read Rule 420, if there is a Rule 420. Oh, hey, these are some of the... There might not be a Rule 420, guys. It's not looking good. Oh, no, there's definitely a Rule 420. Yep, there's... All right, we're nearing the... Wait. 703.6. That one was hyped up. Where's 703.6? Because I remember the game was really hyping up that rule to be a really big one. Some variant games, including additional game states, actions that aren't normally applicable. Fascinating. All right. Okay, we're definitely way off. All right, that's close. Guys, we're getting near. It's all I'm leading. What? That was a massive jump. All right. Well, let's hope it doesn't skip over Rule 420. All right. All right. Let's just scroll straight to it. Oh wait. Oh no, guys! There's no Rule 420. Oh, that is just sad. That's too bad, guys. Dang. Wow. That's unfortunate for all of you guys who wanted me to read that rule. But it appears that I will not. So, I guess I will check on the stream quality, and if it works, then you can expect to see more streams from me in the future. Hopefully those streams will be a little more interesting, and I will actually put some work into them. But I hope you guys watch those streams, and I'll make community posts for when I do.